The atmosphere was just absolutely off the charts. We talked about it closing out our program yesterday. Could it be the final, hockey game at the Nassau Coliseum with the new building open up right next to Belmont Park? And, all those seats are sold for next year, as are all the luxury suites for the Islanders as well, reportedly. So that's good news, as the Islander faithful are going to get a brand new building. But there's still that love affair with the old place out in Nassau. There's still that affection for that place, all the great memories. And, you saw a number of people like Howie Rose reminiscing throughout the course of the day on Twitter about some of the games and some of the experiences. Well, last night, if they don't win a Game 7 on Friday night, that was a hell of a way to play your final hockey game if you're the Islanders at the Nassau Coliseum. Down 2-0. Clearly, obviously, they didn't get embarrassed after they were embarrassed in Game 5, losing that game 8-0. But Braden Point does what Braden Point does, especially in the playoffs. He's scored goals in 9 consecutive playoff games. He's an unbelievable player for Cooper and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then you get the Cirelli goal that makes it 2-0 Tampa Bay. Eberle makes it 2-1. You're going into the third. Game tied up, game is at 2-1. Mayfield with the beautiful shot to tie the game up at 2, and then you win it in overtime on the turnover, with Anthony Beauvillier scoring the game winner, and the Islanders win that game 3-2. Even up the series 3 games apiece. We're going to get a Game 7 on Friday night down in Tampa Bay. Just an unbelievable game. It just was. I don't understand why people are throwing beer cans onto the ice after the game. Olczyk was talking about that on NBC Sports Network last night, but still, all of it. The atmosphere is great. The fans were unbelievably loud, and the team was able to respond after getting embarrassed in Game 5 with a winning comeback performance against the defending Stanley Cup champs. Doesn't get any better than that.
Well, the reason why they're throwing beer cans out on the ice after they win in overtime is because, according to Anthony Beauvillier, it smelled like cigarettes before overtime started. People were huffing heaters, Moose, because everyone was so tense because that game was amazing. And the fact that the Islanders are able to force a Game 7 is just absolutely fitting. And now you're hoping that they win it and we get even more. And let's just keep this train going. Let's keep riding high, because this was an incredible game for a lot of the reasons. First of all, it did kind of follow some trends that we've begun to, kind of see from the Islanders here. Getting behind early. Obviously, this is the third time in the postseason where they've been trailing going into the third period and still came out and won the game. They do not score in the first period. We know that about the Islanders. They're just sort of these comeback kids. And so a lot of ways, this game was totally on trend. But then in many ways it wasn't, because you had Beauvillier, who hadn't scored since Game 1 of the series against the Bruins, because you did have Mayfield. Amazing what he was able to do yesterday in terms of his physicality against Kucherov, which could have been an absolute game, maybe series changer, considering we're not sure if Kucherov can play in Game 7. The fact that he also was bringing it to Stamkos was incredible. And then to tie the game up in regulation with that second goal, holy. There were so many heroes from this game. Beauvillier, of course, is going to get a lot of the credit, as he absolutely should. But there are so many heroes from this game. Scott Mayfield, definitely. Barzal, who played his best game of the postseason. Varlamov with the 22 saves. In some ways, it was kind of a classic Islander game that we've seen so far in this postseason. And in many ways, it just exceeded the expectation. Hell yeah, I would have thrown my Bud Light tall boy on the ice, too. Just out of pure jubilation, not because I was trying to hit anybody.
Yeah, and that's, you look at it, Barzal was the best player on the ice in the third period. And he needed to be. And we talked about him, and the NHL made the right decision after Game 5 not to suspend, but to fine Matt Barzal. His ability, his ability to keep the puck on his stick and keep the puck moving, flying up and down the ice, his skate work is just off the charts. And you saw that in the third period. At one point in time, I think Eddie Olczyk said, as he was basically playing, he was basically keeping the Lightning on the edge of their skates, and keeping them off balance. He said it was the best shift that he saw Barzal play in this entire series. But so Barzal was great. They were able to take advantage of the turnover. Cooper, after the game for the Tampa Bay Lightning, saying that, it's not like they had a tremendous amount of odd man rushes. He's talking about the Islanders now. It's just that every time we made a mistake, they were putting it in the back of the net, and that is true. And, that's why we talked about going into the game last night. There's not a lot of ways for the Islanders to win. There's a lot more ways for Tampa Bay, when healthy, to win. And the Islanders last night were back to their physical style. They got the benefit of a non-call on the Mayfield cross-check to Kucherov, because that was clearly a penalty.
Yep.
I don't care what the intent was. That is a penalty, and it should have been called at the time. It wasn't. Kucherov plays just 46 seconds of the game before he goes back to the locker room, never to return. And that is going to be a big-time key. I mean, you look at Nikita Kucherov. He is an unbelievable player. You look at the statistics, what the Tampa Bay Lightning are with the power play. When he's a part of it, they click off at 40%. When he's not a part of it, they're down to about 20%. He makes everybody on the ice better. He's that kind of a player. 2019 Hart Trophy winner. Nikita Kucherov is really, really special. So they didn't disclose the injury last night. Who knows if he's going to play in a Game 7 and to give it a go. Barely played, obviously. We know the story in the regular season. Coming off that hip surgery and hip injury. He's been playing brilliantly throughout the playoffs. But if Kucherov can't go in a Game 7 tomorrow night in Tampa, that is a huge, huge benefit for the Islanders.
Yeah, and another way that Mayfield really becomes one of the heroes from this game. I mean, you're never in favor of someone doing something dangerous, but he got away with a cross-check there on Kucherov, and, you know, the fact that it got a little chippy after the Stamkos cross-check, and you knew that was going to happen, and I'm sure that bad blood is going to continue to linger, of course, and then a guy who's got 3 career postseason goals is the guy who ends up tying up the game in regulation. I mean, amazing, and listen, we knew the atmosphere was going to be incredible, but honestly, like, they go down 2-0, and you're like, oh boy, you know, I was seeing a couple tweets, air taken out of the building a little bit. I mean, you knew the crowd was going to get right back into it, no doubt about that, but it wasn't looking good. I mean, Tampa Bay at that point had scored 12 straight goals going back over 5 periods, and then the Islanders get themselves back into it, obviously, and it becomes an all-time great game.
Yeah, you know when I got concerned watching the game, 5-on-3, don't convert. Barely have any scoring chances. When you had one Ryan Pulock slapper from the top of the slot, but aside from that, which was an easy save, but aside from that, when they don't score on that 5-on-3, Barry Trotz rightfully so calls the timeout before that 5-on-3. When they don't score there, Maggie, I said, uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Isles are going to be able to come back on this Tampa team, even though the Lightning at one point in time were down to 10 forwards. You know, guys were playing a lot. Usually they finish these games off, and maybe not in style, but they usually hold on for victory. And the Islanders were the better team in the third period. Mayfield with the beautiful goal, and then they take advantage of a bad turnover in your own end with Anthony Beauvillier jumping on the pass, and then, you know, looking one way, shooting the other, and beating them clean to win it for the Isles as that place absolutely erupts at the Nassau Coliseum. And I think it's going to be the Kucherov storyline is going to be interesting. If he can give it a go, I think it changes everything for Tampa Bay. If he can't give it a go, I think the Islanders will have a hell of a shot to beat the Lightning tomorrow night in a Game 7. He's that good of a player.
I know I can't imagine him missing this game, but anyway, I mean, that's, you know, if he can't go, he can't go. But I would imagine, you know, this is the moment where you do everything you can to get back on the ice. You know how tough hockey players are, but I agree with you. I mean, I'm not going to say it all comes down to that, but if the Islanders are going to do what seemed like maybe a week ago would be impossible, which would be to pull off this kind of win on the road. But after watching them last night, I mean, you just can never count them out. I mean, you got to just sort of erase what happened on Monday and just completely get that out of your brain. You know, when the Islanders go back down to Tampa, you can't have any sort of like, oh man, this feels familiar when we just got whitewashed, 8-0 on Monday. And, I think they got to ride this. I think they will. Obviously, I think Game 7 is going to be way more competitive than Game 5 was. And, I think the crowd was incredible, but I thought this was even more than the crowd. The crowd was excellent. I mean, they could not have been and brought it more, and you'd expect that. And I think the team was feeding off it, but I also just think they were determined. I mean, they were just not going to go out like that. And I think Game 7, they're going to give it everything. Obviously, they're going to give it everything. Yeah, no kidding. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it was just a product of the fans. The fans were amazing, but I think that this team just has a lot of just no quit in them, and they've been coming back on teams in series. They've been coming back in games. It's a place where they actually feel comfortable playing from behind. Even Beauvillier said that after the game. We're down 2-0. I felt like we really, we're still in this game, and we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg, I think is what he said. And you kind of, for the players to be thinking that, even when their backs are against the wall in the way that it was, I mean, that's a great sign.
No, it is, and it's really a credit. You and I interviewed Barry Trotz for the first time a couple weeks back. We loved him, right? How could you not like when you get to sit down and have a conversation with Barry for a good 15, 20 minutes, which we did, Maggie.
He makes a very good first impression.
Yes. No doubt. Give him and his coaching staff a ton of credit, to come back home. And we could talk about the resiliency of the Islanders. I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning took the Isles' soul in Game 5, 8-0. So to be able to get this team to respond the way that they did, and even in a game where they're down 2-0, fail on a 5-on-3, and this team continue to work, Maggie, and then get rewarded. And I thought once Eberle makes it a 2-1 game, I thought whoever scored, when it was 2-0, obviously, whoever scores next is winning the game, right? Tampa Bay scores, it's 3-0, game's over. Islanders score, they make it a 2-1 game, and then off we went into that third period with the Isles having a shot. Mayfield with the beautiful goal. Give Trotz and his coaching staff a lot of credit, and Matt Barzal was brilliant when he needed to be brilliant. And we know how good of a hockey player he is. Islander fans know how good of a hockey player he is. You know, in a big Game 6 facing elimination, Matt Barzal was all over the ice last night and was the best player on the ice.
It really was an incredible night all around in New York. I mean, really, that was, and if we want to give a shout out to our colleague Evan Roberts for taking one for the team and doing the milk bath. I mean, this thing worked not just for the Islanders. It worked for the Mets last night. It worked for the Yankees last night. And the Yankees aren't even one of Evan's teams. I mean, the milk bath was the cleanser that this entire city needed sports-wise. And it was just like game after game after game, just winner, winner, winner. And especially that, well, the Islander game, obviously, which was edgier seed and had the highest stakes. But also for the Yankees last night. Moose, that was looking bleak.